So good afternoon, everyone. You can call me Glory. Here to present Tres Marias, Gift Economy, Ecological Justice, and Female Engkanto Authority in three Philippine Engkanto legends. Philippine mountain legends remain relevant as they preserve older ways of imagining nature as inhabited world capable of giving, refusing, and responding to human conduct. In the contemporary Philippines, where even brief rainfall can trigger floods, earthquake may open new faults, and other forms of environmental damage continue to affect many communities, these legends continue to speak about ecological anxieties. So it may come from humans or the environment as well through ecological justice. They do not, of course, present the nature as neutral scenery, as we all know. Rather, it appears as a place of abundance and also danger. It is where gifts may be offered through fruits, caves, utensils, healing plants, gold, hidden wealth, and it is also where greed can cause the same abundance to disappear. So just a brief background, we all know that Engkanto is an elemental or supernatural beings, right? In the Visayan region, we often describe them as dili-ingonato. In the Cebuano belief, for the purpose of this presentation, we call them Encantada or a fairy. However, the fairy should not only be reduced as harmless, decorative, or magical creature, because in this study, they are Encanto de Dios. They are associated with the common good, protection of human communities, and of course, the most important one that I want you to take note, the preservation of nature's balance. Now, in Tres Marias, the Encanto functions as a guardian of ecological order. Their roles include regulating access to the mountain gifts, enforcing moral obligations tied to those gifts, protecting the balance between humans and nature, and responding when humans violate that balance through greed, theft, or exploitation. Now, the materials of these studies were Maria Cacao, Mariang Makiling, and Mariang Sinukuan from Damiana Eugenius' Philippine Folk Literature series, The Legends. And for the purpose of this study, these narratives are collectively referred to as the Tres Marias or Maria Legends. Para lang jud dili ko magbalik-balik og refer silang ngan sa paper. But anyway, the analysis takes Maria Cacao as its Cebuano grounding or Cebuano point of reference for the comparative analysis. And I focus on close reading and selected scenes and motifs of these stories like mountains, gifts, particularly. It answers the questions, how do the Maria legends represent mountains and hidden wealth as living moral spaces? How do greed and failed reciprocity disrupt the mountain's gift economy? And how does reading Maria Cacao beside Mariang Makiling and Mariang Sinukuan enrich Cebuano literary studies? So, and to strengthen the analysis, I used three books. Marcel Mauss' The Gift, The Form, and Reason for Exchange in Archaic Societies. Mauss argues that gifts are never free. Every gift carries the obligation to receive, to reciprocate, and to respect. Mauss also foregrounds that these gifts can happen between exchanges from spirits, gods, things, animals, so hindi lang siya limitado sa human exchange. So in effect, the gift enters human society with obligation, meaning that it must be returned, respected, and or received within limits. Now, I use three ecofeminist materials. Caroline Merchant's The Death of Nature. Merchant critiques how the concept of extractive thinking often reduces nature from a living presence into inactive matter available for possession and domination. Ms. Anne Shiva's ecofeminism shows the connection between the domination of women and the domination of nature. They connect the domination of women and nature by showing how women become aware of the connections between the patriarchal violence against them and ecological destruction. So these two last materials help us understand that the Maria figures are ecological authorities rather than passive female symbols, kay mga babae magid sila. So to begin, let's talk about how the mountain became a moral geography. So Maria Cacao, her cave is located in the Mount Lantoy of Argao, Cebu. The mountain's abundance is shown through utensils, silverware, and so forth. And when people wanted to borrow these things, they just go to the cave of the mouth of the cave, then tomorrow, or I don't know exactly when, these things will just appear on their doorstep. But they have an obligation. Items must be returned. Mariang Makiling, the forest is located in the Mount Makiling, of course. Abundance is shown through herbs, healing plants, fruits, and ginger roots that turn gold, because Mariang Makiling is a very generous fairy. She also heals sick people. But they have an unspoken obligation. They have an unspoken obligation, and that is they should respect it. They should Hello. They should use it with respect, and they should be content. There should be no uprooting or extraction. Mariang Sinukuan, on the other hand, meron siyang golden mansion, and it is hidden and placed in the Mount Arayat of Pampanga. The abundance is shown through fruits, animals, gold, jewels, servants, and ornaments. Mode of giving, people are allowed to use them, eat them, but they should not bring it elsewhere. So their obligation, they should not remove, steal it, and they should respect the prohibitions of Mariang Sinukuan. Now let's talk about these gifts. Mouse clarifies the shared structure of these spaces. In these legends, abundance appears as a gift alone or a permission rather than a free resource. Each gift carries a reciprocal bond each gift creates a reciprocal bond, that creates social, spiritual, and moral force that binds the giver and the receiver into a relationship. These gifts may be used and given, but they also carry, therefore, expectation to maintain the peace and balance between non-human and human worlds. Thus, the mountain is a moral geography because its gifts are not just materials. They possess what Moss calls as the productive power, carrying wealth, food, ancestry, spiritual presence, and the force of the giver. Now, to proceed, we all know how the mountain became a moral geography. Now, the ecological conflict in these three legends begins when humans break the terms of receiving. So in Maria Cacao, the townspeople are allowed to borrow the fairy's things, but some fail to return them. This violation is quiet compared to the violence of Mariang Sinukuan, which you will know later on. Yet it is serious because it transforms a temporary gift into private possession. In Mausian terms, the cycle of giving and returning collapses, resulting in Maria Cacao's gradual disappearance and the cessation of borrowing. This shows that when humans treat the mountain's gifts as ownerless property that they can freely claim as their own, the mountain closes itself. In Mariang Makiling, greed takes the form of extraction. The people first benefit from Makiling's care. But once they learn that the ginger roots have turned into gold, they return to the garden at night and uproot every plant they can find, hoping na it will turn into gold, but it did not. This detail of uprooting shows greed through the physical act of tearing the living garden apart. It is an ecological violence caused by the discontent with what nature can provide and has already provided. So compared to Maria Cacao's response, Makiling's response is not immediate destruction, but through sorrowful withdrawal. She rises into the mountain mist, weeping, and the former intimacy between the people and the mountain is broken. Later, there's this taboo, or a lesson that one may eat fruit on the mountain, but at this time, if they take it home, the insects will sting, thorns will scratch them, and the trail begins to confuse them. So in Maria Sinukuan, greed becomes theft and murder. The people do not merely desire gold. They kill Sinukuan's Eta Negruto's servants to steal gold dust and gold measure. So among the three, this is the most severe violation of ecological abuse because it is social and bloody violence. So for the purpose of this presentation, I made like a progression, a progressive, this progression shows increasing levels of ecological abuse, but it is also interpreted as these three Maria legends have their own ways of enacting ecological justice. Not necessarily progression, but I put it this way because I use Maria Cacao as the Cebuano grounding. So as a consequence, in Maria Sinukuan, the descendants of those who killed the Etas, they grew with luck on their lips and hands then. Now, Merchant's discussion of Bacon scientific language helps frame the deeper meaning of this violation. Merchant argues that nature, once imagined as a living mother and source of life, was increasingly represented as a female body full of secrets to be uncovered, disciplined, and made useful for economic progress. So this language connects women and nature as unruly, hidden, or resistant forces that needed to be subdued. And they use it to justify why they need to extract or control it. Miss and Shiva's ecofeminist critic deepens this point by showing that extraction is environmental, relational, and social. The abuse harms the mountain, the Encantadas, the community, and in Sinukuan's case, the marginalized servants tied to the mountain's economy. So, I'll skip it because this is connected to the last point. Now, the Maria figures here do not portray women as passive. So I want to emphasize that their responses are ecological justice. If you notice the pattern, the consequences directly corresponds to the abuse. Humans abuse borrowing, Maria Cacao stops lending. Humans abuse access, access is restricted. Humans abuse wealth, wealth disappears. These are consequences that mirrors the violation. That is why it is also interpreted as justice rather than arbitrary magic. Now, why is it an ecological justice? Because the punishment is not important because someone must suffer. The punishment is important because it reestablishes the limits that humans ignore. So, to conclude, their shared structure of gifting, violation, withdrawal, and punishment constitutes an indigenous environmental ethics encoded in folklore. For a Cebuano literature reader, this comparison shows that Maria Cacao is not an isolated local tale. Her pattern resonates with Makiling of Laguna and Sinukuan of Arayat, showing that Cebuano literary study is connected to circulating stories, beliefs, migrations, translations, and shared environmental imaginations across Philippine regions. Therefore, the three Maria legends reveal a Philippine oral tradition where the non-human world is inhabited, gifts are conditional, and female supernatural figures guard the boundary between need and greed. They reveal that the mountain offers abundance, but its abundance remains under moral and spiritual law. So these are more materials. The 3 books are here if you want to check on them. And thank you so much for listening.